Hey everybody, welcome to my take on Infamous Second Age. Now, this idea is not at all completely mine. This is going to be a collage of a few ideas from various Infamous YouTubers, but the main one and the story is not at all mine. It is completely someone else's, which I will leave a link to their videos in the description to the best of my ability. And all that. Now, I will take some liberties and do a lot of tweaking and a lot of different stuff, and also explaining some stuff a little bit and how I would have wanted it and stuff like that. But yeah, also we are going to be doing a lot of big changes, and we're also going to be kind of explaining stuff better because Infamous Second Son was weird. So, the prologue of the game will not begin immediately at Curtain K. It will begin a little bit after the Seattle incident. Now, you can choose over 3 different karmas. First one, anti-hero. Second one, infamous. Third one, the good one. Now, the anti-hero one begins with the scene with what happens if you're partially infamous but you don't kill, or you make one good choice. Basically, that's what will happen. The Akomish will live, but you will be an outcast. And maybe you could have a unique angle with that type of story if the game begins like that. Infamous, it begins a very darkly, after you kill the Akomish, and maybe you can, play around with the story after what happened in Seattle. But we're going with the good path for right now. The good one opens up similar in aspect to, basically what happens after you spray paint, the wall. Delphin would explain what happened in the previous game, but he also would explain a little bit what happened afterward. Delphin would help fetch Eugene, take care of some stuff in Seattle. He would explain the paper trail, Cole's legacy side quest that would happen, and also maybe how he gets some more powers. He would explain that underneath Seattle, Augustine would have set up DUP bases in the underneath areas of it, like sewers and stuff, and Delsin would have taken those out and completely got rid of the DUP and Seattle and their presence. Basically, it would show Delsin kind of absorbing core relays and basically taking out people in Seattle, or like the DUP more specifically. Delsin would obviously want to go and free, the conduits in Curtain K. So after that, the cutscene would begin where, if you're in good karma completely, Delsin would have a civilian that basically offered to fly them in a chopper to Curtain K. It would begin kind of like a mix of first person and not, where most likely you would basically be pretty much in complete control, kind of, but it would be snowing and la-di-da-di-da. The difference is there would be a setup for the army showing up later on, where Eugene would say, hey, I got something picked up on the radar, or we got something, and all that. But once you finally get to Curtain K Station, this is where the changes would begin. This will give us more of a tutorial of more specifically how it is, how new players, you get to play around with the old stuff first in various stages, before getting to Curtain K, and then you get a new power. So each one will have a layout that is for a specific power. You can use the different ones, but all that. But basically, in the chopper, there'd be probably a little bit of dialogue, la-di-da-da, but it would also set up a multiplayer aspect of maybe you can switch and play as the other characters, or do an Arkham Knight team-up takedowns. Who knows? Delson would leap out of the chopper. They would make their way because they can't just fly immediately because they will get shot down. So the Delson would have the civilian, fly back. If you're anti-hero, same thing, but maybe he could play a joke where he messes with them and shoots at them. But if you're infamous, basically he forced them to fly there and then he makes them crash. After, he says, oh, you can fly back, no worries. And then he blasts them out of the sky using his powers once he lands along with the others. And plays on a more darker tone. So as you make your way to Curtain K, you first go through these various stages, and there would also be a setup for a unique angle with certain trophies. If you find a certain location that's tied to one of the conduit's powers that you basically absorbed, which would be a unique angle that I didn't think would really get touched on, but it might come more in handy later on than you think it will. So for the first stage, you get to play around with smoke and experiment with some new abilities that you didn't have before, obviously, and play around with taking out the dupes and all that jazz. Then the next stage would be Leon. Not Leon. Leon from Resident Evil. No. Neon. And it also would be close to the cave. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking. Cave where Fetch killed, like the cliff, or not really cave, but cliff, where Fetch killed Shane, which there would be a unique cutscene if you go over to the ledge where Delphin would have a brief flash of that bit and would hear some of what happened. And then Fetch would stop Delphin and say, hey, what's going on? And she would recognize the area, but would be a little nervous, but wouldn't say nothing. And Delphin would play it off, and he would say nothing, just something interesting and familiar here. Which she wouldn't ask, but she would be intrigued and stuff like that. The next area would be around with video, and you would also have some new abilities that you could play with video. Obviously, the video grenade, shield, and some other stuff. And you could also do stealth takedowns with video, like sneaking up behind one of the dupes, casting them digitally into a TV, and leaving them there, and stuff like that. Maybe they will pixelate out eventually, but, I think it'd be pretty cool. If you're infamous, you can elbow the TV and break it, kind of like how with Mirrormeister, if you break a mirror, he'll be trapped in there, stuff like that. That would be pretty cool. So, and the last would be concrete. This, you would basically, obviously would have changes to the main 4 abilities, because you would first get a tutorial of how to use the stuff you already used before, but there would be minor changes. If you're infamous, or, anti-hero, or whatever, or vigilante, basically the karma bombs will be slightly changed depending on who you are. If you're infamous, the karma bomb for smoke will slightly be changed, same for neon, and same for video. They would be more versatile and stuff like that, because I want them to feel a lot more different depending on the karma you have, and stuff like that. Especially, I don't want them to be completely the same. So neon will probably be changed completely. The radiant sweep that's bad that you get in Second Son will probably be given to the anti-hero or vigilante status, but infamous wise, maybe basically Delphin would have a brand new karma bomb for infamous neon, and I have an idea of it, but I don't want it to be a complete copy of Fetch's Singularity, so I'm constantly trying to rethink it and stuff like that, so I won't go fully in depth. The same for video. I will be changing how that works, but you have more of a freedom to use it. Delphin would reach out his hands in various directions, as demons would come around him, swarming, grabbing different dupes, going up in the air, and then swarming back down. Only if you're in Infamous Karma, or maybe same for the other stuff. So, the last stage you get to use Concrete. This is where the most changes will be. This will basically introduce this style of basically each power has a different gameplay style compared to the next. And Concrete is no different, and you actually get a chance to fully use all the things that you did not have before, including a Karma Bomb called the Meteor Bomb. It would be more of a diagonal-based one, while each of the various Karma Bombs, Radiant Sweep and is more, outwards. Meteor Bomb, or the Orbital Drop is more upwards, and downwards would be more of what is it called? Shoot. I'm trying to remember. The Heaven's Hellswarm, whatever. The Karma Bomb for, would be kind of split up. If it's evil, it would be more like shards, like big, terrible shards. And it would be more diagonal, while you have up, down, and all this. This would be more changed. And you would also have more versatility with Concrete than you had before. And, of course, you can drain it from the structures and also sidewalks and stuff like that. This time, you can actually drain the Concrete from the structures, the DUP agents, and sidewalks, because I'm fixing the problem that we had with Infamous Second Son, where he can only drain it from dupes. I thought that was dumb, and it was also cheap, because why couldn't he just drain some bits of Concrete from cracked bits of the structures? It made more sense, or even sidewalks. I don't personally understand it, but oh well. So, after getting through the last stage, you would basically get up to Curtain K, and finally, you would finally, basically get close. They would be basically in between a transfer of moving all the conduits, or working to get all the conduits out and move them somewhere else completely that's secret, as a last-ditch effort, as a final thing that Augustine prepared, just in case something terrible would happen. And it would be a lot more interesting because it makes the most sense for Augustine to have a backup plan, and just in case the government was to come knocking. And in this case, they do. But when Delsin and Eugene and Fetch get up there, they're in between a transfer, and one of the prisoners tries to run. He doesn't get far, though, because Delsin tries to grab him and ask him what's going on, and accidentally gets his power. This particular prisoner has glass abilities. You would see his flashback, get more of an idea of what's going on, blah, 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 some other stuff, and kind of the same thing. Power Gunner explains it better. Here's the kicker. This time, when Delsin wakes up and the conduit is dead, you would have Fetch and Eugene basically battling the military. Same setup, but different execution. This time, Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene would have to be protecting Delsin, because they would try to kill him while he was unconscious. But also, they would fall back inside of Curtain K, giving you more of a leeway to basically helping the DUP agents take on the military this time around, and also getting to explore Curtain K, and also having different stages and stuff like that. For instance, there is a concept art where, from the first game, that is basically sets up like this glass-based area where you would have glass-based enemies. So maybe we can kind of reuse that, which would be interesting, and maybe you would get an explanation that Augustine, during the Seattle incident, the reason why she did not use her various different DUP squads or factions besides her concrete one, is because she wanted to keep them and strategize. She knew if she failed at this opportunity, or let alone if she was killed, she would have no one to protect the DUP or Curtin K if something was to go awry. And also, it would also explain something else, but we'll get into that later. As you explore, you can find secret areas, like the one where Eugene would be, the one where he was experimented on and wired and la-di-da-di-da, which would be another secret location where flashes would occur and you would get more of a sense of his character. Same for Hank and various others. Difference is, this is where the major choice comes in handy, where you would have 4 options. Letting out the conduits for freedom, but leading that would probably get them into a massacre. Helping, basically the second one would be leaving all the conduits to die and basically stealing all their powers or something. They're basically leaving the conduits to die or whatever, blah, blah, blah. The last one is riling the conduits into a riot so you can escape the military. And the second to last would be riling the conduits to the DUP to protect, basically have them work together so we could all fight back against the military, la-di-da-da. So those would be the 4 options. Delsin would hover over a switch in the main terminal that would let off all the cells and stuff like that. So those would be your 4 kind of options. Basically, let out all the prisoners and they could all die. Don't let them out and just worry about stealing their powers, which you won't ever really be able to do anyways. Basically, rile them into a riot so you can escape and they'll get killed. Or the last one is have them work together with the DUP to basically, and you guys, to take out the military, which probably will not work, but oh well. So, if you choose the last option, basically same effect. They try to take on the military, but Zeke would arrive in a helicopter and tell Delsin, hey, there's a nuke coming. Kind of the same thing execution-wise that Power Gunner explained in his video, blah, blah, blah. But the difference is this time there would be a very eerie tone because some of the conduits would want to escape after hearing about the nuke. And someone would get shot on sight, by the military as they stop after hearing that or other stuff during the cutscene. And basically, it would have a very similar feeling to the Sea Hall bombing from Marvel Spider-Man 1, but kind of different. But of course, Delsin, would have, went through the stuff, and he would have all the powers with glass. Depending on if you're good or evil or anti-hero, well, good karma, I would partially change the karma bomb to be a little different and not use the molten glass angle because I personally had a cooler, interesting angle. Delsin would launch up in the air, and he would send out different shards of glass at the ground, and then rise them up like a maze, and then you could collapse and change different stuff and making it like a stained glass maze, which would be interesting and kind of change. If you're anti-hero or vigilante, it would be the same as the evil karma bomb, but it wouldn't make things worse completely. And it would practically be the same evil, but a little bit more dark. Maybe Delsin would make some, pretty crazy remarks and stuff, la-di-da-di-da. Same thing would happen, the nuke would go off, cut to black, red, infamous Second Age scene and all that, and then they would get to Seattle. Here's where the big change happens. I would personally change the some of the stuff where there'd be more than just 3 islands. There'd be 1 island offshore that is mentioned as they're flying in, which is a government-controlled island, partially sanctioned by the force that's a part of the new Empire, city, but it's partially mixed in with the military and also First Sons, but you don't find that out till later. And depending on what karma you are, You could have the guard that was a part of the audio logs in the first game, or if you're in Good Karma, Augustine would be there, coincidentally. Little aged, little different, but, let alone the same. But that's only till later. Won't spoil how that happens, but yeah. The first objective of the game would actually be something interesting that sets up a cool angle. You actually have to make your base of operations. It's basically near the edge of Empire State, the new Empire City. Basically, there would be rough ruins that merge from the lower ground to the upper ground, and coincidentally, it's nearby the area where basically Zeke his rooftop from the original game, but it's partially sanctioned off and all that. There'd be a force field around the area, and you would actually have to play as the different characters and get to experience their different gameplay styles and stuff like that, to basically turn off the force field, put a special device so they can't be monitored, all that jazz, and then basically be near the edge of the city. Partially can go underground or above it and make your way to the city and all that jazz. But this would be a ruined area where the lower half of Old Empire mixed in with the new one. But it hasn't been super developed because there's something, nefarious going on. Think of the map in this case like, for instance, it's a lot bigger the actual map is compared to what you would see when you're looking at the map. This building is probably very extremely run down, and the first objective you have of the game is getting it up and running and building a base of operations. You can do a little bit of spray paint and all that stuff, and you would have like a cutscene of Zeke and some military guys getting some stuff up and running. And a unique angle to this was that it's also close to a bit downstairs where it's basically can connect to the main Old Empire, but also to the new one. So you have different ways you can travel in between, very low and above. So basically, this would be a very edge of the map, almost like a mixture of half-ruined buildings going up between layered down. It's kind of like the bit in Arkham City where you're in between. It's kind of like a mixture of how when you're building above something and the old stuff sometimes will come up above it, so it's not completely broken down like the Titanic plates from a destruction. It's kind of like that. The building would have been half destroyed, but it would have provided the perfect place that you would need, and also the nostalgia feeling of it being Zeke's old and Cole's old building would be unique. Also, Zeke would have these military guys or ex people and stuff that would be working with him. One of them would be a female officer that maybe has a bit of a thing for Zeke and vice versa, and that would be an interesting angle throughout the game, because I think Zeke needs somebody. And so yeah, obviously you would work to make sure this building is secure, and obviously it would be pretty cool to first play as each of the characters, like Fetch with her speed, using a special stay in the. You can't turn back. You have to keep running. So that's the hard part of the first part of the stage. You have to basically put special things to keep the gas from basically keep the force field up, but take out the gas and kind of have this illusion aspect or hologram. Then you would play Eugene to make sure that there's a special device placed around the different sensors, and you would basically play as him and basically have to do the different things. And then you can play as Delson, and then you get to set up the apartment building, fix it up, and all that stuff. Then you can throw in maybe some GTA elements, to really put in some cool new interesting style to the game. Now, the building would obviously be the main hub, and it would be pretty cool. There would be different rooms for each of the different characters, and the basement would have a mixture of Batman Arkham Origins Batcave with a lot of different stuff. You can go through the layers of the building, but it would be the only one that's still not completely in ruin, as coincidence, and just because why not? After this, maybe through some dialogue options and some explaining, basically just kind of like Paragoner script, there would be a mixture of like what's going on. You would basically understand that, this, that, or the other. Same thing. Also, the thing with Celia would still be a thing too. La-di-da-di-da. Here's the kicker. This would change just a smidge, because now the first mission, you have to, get supplies, and you have to go under like low profile around the city. So you would also have to get new clothing, and also, change and stuff like that, and you would get a minor this is only a minor thing, and it's only for certain missions, and you can use it to buy cosmetics and stuff from like stores in Empire City, and also it plays up a cool angle from the Marvel Spider-Man games, with especially Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, and with GTA and Watch Dogs combined, this kind of like more street level hero aspect in getting to know the civilians and stuff. So getting your first objective is to get a change of clothes and stuff, and also get some supplies. You would have a bit of a cash system, but it'll merge into your XP system as well. So as you move along the city, there would be a cool angle of nostalgia, because it would feel like a mixture of Arkham Knight mixed with Arkham City, and the aspect of the map. You basically have like this cool, thriving utopia, but there's still an air of darkness, and then you go a little bit deeper because of how layered the map is, and how big and expansive it is, with the amount of powers that you will get. Like the map itself, the size of it, if you push the button and check the map size, it's very deceiving to what the actual map and how big it is. At least how I would see it in my head. The actual map would actually have a few extra, maybe a little bit of an extra island before the game starts. Like you get to go outside of Empire City just a smidge, but when the chaos starts, that area is closed off, and you cannot no longer go back there, and you're stuck to the 3 main islands. But you slowly unlock them again, and all that stuff. Same with the way Infamous 1 did it. But here's the kicker. As you roll around and get supplies and stuff for the building, you do encounter a civilian getting attacked by a gang. A gang that's all too familiar to Zeke. When Delsin you have the option of making yourself completely known with using your powers, or taking them out without using your powers, or just killing them. And the last one is just more of the not the pessimist, but the less violent route of trying to talk them out of it, that type of crappy route. Delsin, not really his style, but, same thing. The gang that the civilian was being attacked by is called the New Reapers. They are basically a version of the Reapers from Infamous 1, but more expansive, more different, and basically they would be almost like an upgrade to the original Reapers, but a whole lot different and a whole lot scarier, and you would not know how they came back. Obviously, with no matter what choice you kind of make an enemy of that group. And it is further explained a little bit more of Zeke's history with the Reapers, and why he personally is very scared and also angry that they're back, but also he's confused because he thought Sasha was dead. But maybe it could not be it could be Sasha. It's just some people imitating them. But Delphid would probably beg to differ because of the way they would look and stuff like that. But that's a plot line that will get further explored later on. It will also be explained that they are one of the 3 rival gangs that would be a part of the city. Or more accurately, they would be a faction that you would have to deal with. Yes, we're keeping the faction questline, but we're expanding it a lot more than Power Gunner did. Instead of just having it DUP, military, and Adam's forces, I wanted to have other factions that are different in all that, and it also would play on this unique angle of being a coup d'etat to the infamous franchise. So there would be multiple factions, and they would take over the city or have parts of the city, not just gangs, but also other factions that I haven't revealed yet, and I won't till maybe later in the video. The 3 rival gangs would kind of take the place of the drug dealers, the Occurrence, and I don't think there was any other rival gangs in Seattle, but basically they would kind of take up that role, but they would kind of be like how Watch Dogs did the different gangs and stuff in Watch Dogs 1, but a little different. And it will also come in play later. So obviously Delphid would be kind of weirded out, but not knowing enough about the Reapers, you kind of, shake it off. Delphin would probably do a few side quests. But you can't use your powers for a little while into the game. I know that'll be weird, but I want there to be kind of this kind of way of like the hero blending in type angle. You can somewhat use your powers, but only when like you're not like if you're in the street and stuff, but if you're in a back alley and you just decide to smoke dash or something, you cannot drain any of your like powers or stuff yet because you do not want to you don't want to be known that you're there, basically. So that is kind of this angle of like it's supposed to be like undercover for right now. You would also get a variation of like Delphin kind of not knowing enough about the city, so of course there would be an encounter with the Atom soldiers where a guard is kind of naive and he kind of asked him, like, tells him where to go and like the different stuff, and actually gives him an expansive on his map, and also explains certain areas that you shouldn't go and la-di-da-di-da. And that would be a unique little thing that I think would be included after the Reaper incident. And he would also be the one that explains the whole thing with the gangs and why things aren't as cut and dry as you led to believe. The Atom Soldiers would also be similar in aspect to the Sable ones from Marvel Spider-Man, at least in design. Just a smidge, because, come on. Later on throughout the game, they would become a little bit aggressive, but this particular guard will come into play later for a few side quests and stuff like that. Also, speaking of side quests, we're going to be fixing some stuff and being a little bit more lenient. I know that this type of game would be very expansive. It would almost be like a new IP, but I also want it to be big and better. So we are mixing together all the best parts of the infamous gameplay and stuff like that, but we will save that for its own separate video because this one would be basically an hour or 2 hours long, and I can't upload this as as any type of video because of how long it is. So yes, at least for now. So in retrospect, you would basically, most obviously, make your way through the city. You can't use your powers completely unless you're going through back alleys, and you make your way like parkouring on top, but not like completely. It's kind of like the bit from the beginning of Infamous 1 where and also Second Son, where you're kind of just parkouring and stuff. It would kind of feel like that, and it would kind of expand on the tutorial, but it would also give us a reason why you can't completely use your powers yet, which is, it kind of builds on this slow angle that builds up all the factions and all the enemies that are a part of the game. And while we're at it, we will be expanding a lot of the different characters. There will be minor side quests, not just stuff on the map like your typical dead drops and other stuff. There will be also side quests on the map, but also personal side quests that you can do. And also, as if you play as another character, kind of GTA style, they will have their own side missions, collectibles, and stuff like that. Kind of playing on a unique angle from Resident Evil 2, the original, with Claire and how the and Leon, how their stories would merge. It can be kind of similar to that, mixed with like Batman and Catwoman from Arkham City, with that type of way they did it. Now, here's the kicker. The side quests, the personal ones, would be on their own separate wheel compared to the ones that you would see on the map and stuff like that. Here's the thing. These are more the important ones. Kind of like how I wanted Arkham Knight to do side quests, is that the ones in the wheel are the more important ones. The most wanted stuff and like that. The difference in the kicker is that the ones on the map are kind of minor and stuff like that. Kind of like the typical ones you would get from Infamous 1 or stuff like that. Like the miniature side quests, like doing stuff for people and, for certain characters, all that, but make them more memorable, add unique gameplay stuff, and all that jazz. So they don't feel too annoying or repetitive, because that's one aspect of Infamous I want to fix and honestly want to change. The map would feel very expansive, and as Delsin would parkour through the city and obviously make it back to the base and fix it up, you would have like a scene, where it's, spruced up a bit and la-di-da-di-da, and they turn it into an actual base. There'd be kind of a unique moment with Delphin and Fetch and all them like spray painting the building and fixing it up and la-di-da-di-da, kind of that cool, funny moment. And then Zeke would have some of his guys tap into the lower bits and basically tap into all the communication and all the systems of the new Empire City and also other stuff. But they aren't tapped into the police database, so for anything else that they can't do, that will be one of a side mission that will come into play later. After minor tussle with like the Reapers and stuff and some of the gangs, those are developed through like side quests, and also you'll get more of an explanation of why you're here and what's going on and all that jazz. The first thing that would happen would be the DUP would show up, but Celia would first show up and make an offer to Delsin to join her and take down the military and also other stuff. But also she said, you work with me and, take some of this stuff on basically, like facets of the city, la-di-da-di-da, kind of the same thing you would get, the whole join me or, that type of crap. The difference is when she shows up, it's out of the blue, and it's kind of like how that bit with Kessler, how he basically just was standing on a rooftop when Cole first encountered him. Kind of like that. But little different. She would just, show up, be at the base in front of it, and Delsin would have to walk out there and notice and talk to her. The exchange would happen, and there would be a little bit of a different feel to it because of Celia's background and some of the stuff that's happened with her. You would also get a feeling if you're good, bad, or anti-hero or whatever karma. We can kind of mix around with the karma system that there would be different dialogue options, but if you're going off the good ending or bad, Celia would have a different reaction when it comes to Augustine and what happened with her, depending on what ending you chose or what ending happened. So yeah. If you're good Delphin, she would kind of like going off the good ending. She would have a little bit of an interesting reaction, and she would even give a little bit of a hint that Augustine is being held actually somewhere in Empire City, ironically enough. If you're evil Delson, she would just kind of mock the fact that you killed Augustine. She'd find it kind of amusing, even though that was kind of like her mother, but she would honestly wouldn't care. Doesn't matter what you do, the choice is still given. She would tell Delson to either you have a choice of me and the conduits, or side with them and die. But Delphin you would have a dialogue option depending on what you choose, might change Celia's perspective and maybe make her question some things and stuff like that. Maybe would be a unique angle that I wanted to throw out there, and all that jazz. After the encounter with Celia, the next day, there would be a report of a giant concrete structure and also a cutoff of one of the islands where the DUP would have showed up and made a giant structure and base and occupied that island, which is ironically one of the partial basically bits of one of the islands. Is each island would have 3 different factions, not one, not two, 3, and they would be split evenly. I wanted the map to feel more immersive and kind of pulling from a prototype aspect. Instead of having one faction for island, if all the islands are kind of huge, I want there to be a very immersive feel to each one. So one of the giant one would be one of the main factions for one of the islands. It would be the DUP. The second faction of that island would be one of the gangs, and the third would be one of the main villains' general's factions. And that will be explained later. But regardless, let's get back to it. As that would happen, it would only escalate and get worse. The military would take control of another island, and that would be the secondary faction, and the one that you're on would be Adam's faction. So you would have 3 main factions that you would have to deal with versus 3 more for the gangs and 3 others, but split a little bit. It would technically be more for the main villain's generals, which will be explained later on. Because I wanted to pull from Arkham Knight with how I would set this up and how I would set up the faction system and stuff like that. Taking back the city and stuff like that would be a very cool and immersive thing, but I want there to be a little bit more to it than just kind of standing by the people of the Empire and all that stuff. I could see more in more interesting angles that you can go with the story, and depending on your choices, giving it more replayability and stuff like that. In a certain aspect,